Kyle, you being the UFC buff out of the two of us, should I say, what do you think this does for his reputation? The comments that he had prior to the fight, some people say he extended it a little past the fight, or should I say past the UFC, and then post game or post fight, some people say he looked a little arrogant with his Scarface comment. So, I mean, I just want to get your thoughts. Like, is Conor McGregor trying to keep himself relevant with all his post and pre-fight antics, or is this just who he is and UFC has to deal with it?
It's probably a little bit of both. I'm gonna be honest with you. Connor has never been the same after that Floyd fight. The way that I've seen it is, Connor was the biggest attraction that the UFC had to offer about 4 to 5 years ago, and he was solid. He was a two-time belt holder, which back then was damn near unheard of. And the way that he was able to propel himself to the top of the UFC, the way that he was able to interact with the fans, his his apathetic approach to his dominance in the UFC up to that point, it was something that a lot of people really enjoyed. And since then, you've seen Connor really slip. He did have the one win against Cowboy Cerrone before all the COVID stuff happened in 2020. And in the couple of fights that he's fought since then, they've been against Dustin Poirier, and Dustin's put him to work in the two fights. Now, granted, this fight only went one round, but even so, Dustin was killing Connor in the first round. I thought Connor started out the first round well, and then Dustin got control. He had Connor on his back for the second half of the first round, and it was just ground and pound from Dustin, and Dustin was really laying some good shots on Connor. Connor was actually really lucky to get out of that first round, disregarding the leg break. So, and that's really kind of the one issue that I've seen from Connor's game is that once he gets on his back, he hasn't found an effective way to get back up and get it into a position where he has the advantage because Connor is primarily a boxer. He's primarily a striker. And a lot of the losses that we've seen from Connor, it's usually when he usually ends up on the ground and he can't get back up because it takes a lot of strength to get back up when you got a guy who has top position and he's just wailing shots on you from that position. So, to a certain extent, I think fighters across the UFC are figuring out Connor is that if you just get him on his back, he's going to tire himself out, and then that's when you can really take advantage and defeat Connor in a match. As far as the comments go, look, Connor has always been braggadocious. He's never been one to hold anything back. So that part really doesn't surprise me. I just thought the comments here that he said after the fight, after he broke his leg, were just out of pocket. I didn't like the things that he said about Dustin's wife, with Dustin and his wife in the ring while he was getting interviewed by Joe Rogan. That's just not something that you do. And like you said, even before the fight, it seemed like Connor really made this personal between him and Dustin. And the only quote that I could think of in my head here is a quote from The Dark Knight from Two-Face was, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I really think that's what we're seeing Connor. Connor was the darling of the UFC for, 5 to 6 years ago. And ever since it's been slowly going downhill from him ever since. And I'm not going to say that Connor's washed at this point. He's only 32 years old. I think it's a little bit too premature to say that, but he needs to really get it together. He's going to have to take some time off, reevaluate his situation in the UFC. And I'll be honest with you, is it really worth it for him to continue this trajectory in the UFC? I think he's definitely motivated to get back into the ring and compete again. It's just that how effective is he going to be? It does seem like the competition around him is getting better. And unless he makes some adjustments in his game, Connor could just literally be obsolete within a year or two. And at that point, you kind of look at him and his career as like, bro, is it worth it anymore? Because, Conor was this big guy because he was winning in the UFC. Everybody loved him because he was winning. But now that he's losing, and with all this chirping going on, it doesn't look good, and it doesn't really reflect well on him. So I think Conor's best course of action here is to just relax for the next couple months, obviously recover, and figure out some new tactics, figure out some new techniques to throw your competition off, because he's too predictable. And until he changes that, you're going to see similar results to what you saw in this fight, even though there was only one round against Dustin. But Dustin is clearly the better fighter here, and it showed. And Dustin definitely deserves the title fight that he's going to have between himself and Charles Oliveira within probably the next couple of months or so. So all in all, it was a big disappointment that we didn't get to see a full Conor versus Dustin fight. Essentially, this was a trilogy fight between them. And it wouldn't surprise me if we do see these two fight again, just because this one was so short. But yeah, all in all, I would say that this matchup was a disappointment just because of the injury to Conor's leg.
I mean, just from looking from the outside on in, obviously, for those of you that watch us on the regular, I'm not normally the UFC guy. I'm not the guy that usually takes or has takes on these fights that happen over the weekend. I just happen to be out and about with my girlfriend and her family, like I had said before the episode, or as the episode had started. And I saw some of the preliminaries and saw some of the main card. And then, you get to the Conor fight, you see what happened, and you're just like, well, wow. And you do some research, and me being the person that I am, like, the animosity towards the post-fight interview between both Dustin and Conor and some of the trash talking that was going on, I was like, wow, that seems very intense. I'm assuming that means Conor probably ran his mouth. And you look at what Conor said about, like Kyle said, his wife, and I'm going to kill you, I'm going to put you in a coffin, and all these kind of things. And you look at it overall, and you're like, is Conor saying these things to remain relevant? Like I had asked Kyle. And, Kyle answered as best as he could. And it wasn't the answer that I wanted, because I'm just looking at this from a business perspective. And you look at it like Conor has literally lost the last couple of fights he's fought, excluding the Cowboy fight. And Conor's always been the cocky, brash, just the outgoing, overspoken kind of fighter. And like Kyle also stated, when he was winning, it was great. Everybody loved the attitude. Everybody loved the charisma and the energy he brought to the octagon. And now he's losing. And it's almost like, because he's losing, he's crossing the line to get more people to watch his fight or prepare to see him fight. And it's unfortunate that UFC kind of rules this as a loss because of an injury. I feel like that's a little messed up, but I'm not going to get into that because obviously I'm not too familiar with the actual rules that go into UFC. But I agree with Kyle. I think another fight should definitely happen, just because it ended the way that it did. A lot of people paid money to see this fight, or should I say the trilogy that it was going to be, the conclusion. But, with this ending and an unfair decision, and Dustin being as confident as he was post-fight, I would assume Dustin would have no problem with signing for another one, or should I say signing for a fourth, or should I say the real third fight. And Kyle said it best. I mean, Conor's got to come prepared. Conor's got to come ready with some different things, because if Dustin continues the role that he's on in terms of, doing what he's got to do to Conor, it may not bode well for McGregor. So that was my little tidbit on UFC, and I'm proud of myself for being able to hold a conversation that far. And by conversation, I mean, give at least somewhat of a take. And that catapults us into the next topic.
Wait. Hold up. I'm not gonna let you off the hook. I'm not gonna let you off the hook. I heard you talking. Talking about, I didn't answer your relevance point. I heard that. The reason why I didn't necessarily answer it the way that you were probably expecting is because Conor is just, like, the name itself is relevance. Like, yeah. He brings that type of show when he's fighting. I mean, when you look at the pay-per-view numbers when Conor's on a fight, they're like double or triple compared to like some other UFC fighters who are big in their own right. It's just that Conor is that dude, or used to be that dude. It's just, the last couple fights, he really hasn't shown the world, or he hasn't really shown me that, that he's a championship contender anymore. And that kind of sucks, because, I want Conor to succeed. I think everybody wants to see him succeed in some sort of way. And even if he loses, as long as he's competitive, that's just what people want to see. They know what he's capable of. But Conor, when it comes to his relevance, if he's on a card, there's his relevance. You know, even with him losing these last couple fights against Dustin, people are still going to be drawn into Conor simply because it is Conor. He is the notorious, like, there's no other way for me to say it other than that. I will say this, though. It's like I mentioned with the, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. Conor has to really, I think, adjust his shit talking, because I think it's starting to rub people the wrong way. In this one in particular, he came off very personal to the point where it crossed the line. And Conor has, like I said, he's not one to hold things back. It's just that I don't think people are tolerating it as much anymore because he's losing. I think when he was winning, people kind of turn a blind eye to it, or they didn't really focus too much on it. But with Conor still in the UFC, and trust me, Dana White knows how big of a revenue generator that Conor is for the UFC. So his relevance is always going to be around, you know, unless he really falls off. And it's too premature for me to say that. But yeah, by and large, he's going to be relevant in the UFC for the foreseeable future, even despite these losses. I can't go too far and say that he's just irrelevant with all the trash talking that he does. He's always done that.